Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Griffin Conan. You're watching Fish on First Live.
Thank you very much, Griff. Yes, Fish on First Live. Brand new season, 2025 for opening day. We've been doing this throughout spring training and the offseason, but now the real stuff begins. This is an annual tradition right in the middle of our day. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Presented by About the Fans. You heard it in the intro, and you can see it on my chest right now. We have our own merch for the first time this year. There it is, this polo that all my staffers will be wearing very shortly. We got hats, we got t-shirts, etc. And all you do, aboutthefans.com. Got a promo code to get you 10% off. We'll be sending out free merch to a lot of our super subs that have supported us along the way to get here. And that's awesome. So we are very excited about that this season. Joined by Nate Karsmer, two special guests at the very top of the show, Jeremiah Geiger from Locked On Marlins and Sean Millerick. Both of them have been on the show a bunch of times the last few years. We have another guest coming on in just like 15 minutes to give us the other side, the perspective here. It's Marlins versus Pirates here on opening day and for these first 4 games of the regular season. If you're new, we do these shows before every single Marlins series, 50-something series coming up. Usually an hour before first pitch is when we go live, just talking about what's going on, checking in at the ballpark, reading the live chat and all your questions that go up there. So please, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, send them in. And we're happy to hear what you have to say and answer your questions as best we can leading up to the start of things. So we have, for this first series, I wanted to rewind a little bit. As I mentioned, we just did a show last week during spring training. We're not totally coming in blinds after last year. I wanted to start with you, Nate, just about, if anything, has spring training made you feel better or worse about this Marlins team heading into this year? What, any particular takeaways or players that your opinion may have shifted on a little bit compared to where it was at just a few weeks ago?
If you were to ask me this probably at the start, I'd probably say I'd be a little bit more optimistic. But towards the end of spring, just the injuries really have made me feel a little bit worse about this squad. I think losing Connor Norby for a couple of weeks is really going to suck. Guy that is going to get his first full taste of the major leagues this season, and he's going to be out for the first couple of weeks. And of course, Jesus Sanchez, who was my pick he was the first lock I had to be the most certain that I was going to be for a guy to be on the opening day roster. And of course, he's not here. He's hurt as well. So having those two guys out is going to suck. And of course, Eddie's not going to be there as well. So that's going to suck as well. But so far, everyone else, I mean, just seeing Sandy out there, I think it's going to be awesome to see him out there today. And Xavier Edwards had a strong spring, who is going to be, I think, a lot of our team MVPs for the roundtable that we did. So I'm still not, I'm not too high on this team, but it's opening day, man. I mean, what's there not to be excited about?
Same thing to you, Sean, if at all, from following spring training. I think you probably share our general opinion about the low expectations for the big league team. But if there's anything that stood out from spring training that may have shifted your opinion or your understanding of a player, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly expectations for the roster not super high. The offense hasn't been great for 2 years going into this year. The offense has been pretty much designed to be worse in a lot of ways every year since then. So I'm not expecting a ton of scoring, but I guess the player whose opinion I've changed the most on during spring was excited to see everything that Max Meyer has added to his arsenal, and Max Meyer staying healthy, throughout the spring and looking locked in. So that's in terms of this optimism growing from the start of the spring training onwards. That's the player whose opinion I've changed on the most. I probably had him pegged more for let's just go ahead and try him into bullpen, before spring, and I'm now more than willing to go ride the starter train one more time with Max Meyer.
Jeremiah, you're kind of on that same boat, aren't you, with the Max Meyer hype based on what we've seen so far?
Yeah, definitely. I've really liked diving into the analytics and the data and seeing his progression this spring. And then for the position players, I think a couple guys I'm curious as to how they perform over a full season would be Jonah Bride and Otto Lopez. Regression is always a possibility when it comes to a player who had a good stretch of games to start their career and the fan base gets excited about them, but I want to see how they do over the entirety of the season, because you're going to have a ton more of opportunities. Pitchers are going to get more scouting reports. And then with Xavier Edwards, to touch on what Nate was saying, I really like seeing his approach at the plate, not just for batting average and contact, but he's adding a little bit more slug in terms of the doubles. So the home runs won't be there, but if he can utilize gap to gap power, that's going to help him in the long run too.
We should also get our responses to this opening day roster coming out fairly similar to what we had envisioned just the day before. There was a little like last minute deal for the second straight year, a trade on opening day eve that shifted things around a little bit. But overall, for people that haven't seen it to this point, this is a breakdown of the 40-man itself and then the guys that are actually on the roster active for this very first game. You got 3 guys on the 60-day IL, 5 others that are on the shorter ILs, and that leaves us with this group of Sandy and the kids. Well, you could say Sandy and Cal Quantrill and the kids. Those are the 2 graybeards of the group. Both of them, from as best as I can tell, it's their 6th opening day as healthy, active players. For everybody else, 3 or less. And overall with this group, everybody has some big league experience except for Liam Hicks. He's the Rule 5 guy that made this roster, and he was trending in that direction all of camp. So Nate, just anything, as I said, it wasn't really surprising. Is there anything you might have done differently just based on other guys that are on the 40-man or any of the NRIs that you thought could have been squeezed in here? To anything you would have done maybe slightly differently if you had the choice to?
I think it's tough to say about doing anything differently, but I like what he pointed out on Twitter today, Eli. Just I think 16 guys for spring training. Is it 16 or 17 around that number? Mm-hmm. Mainly the pitchers. That's just crazy to me. So, like you said, it's a lot of young guys. I was kind of surprised when Isaac tweeted out that Stowers would be making the team. But you really can't. He's in a tough spot. He had a really rough spring, but again, you want to see what you can get from a guy like that. He still has a fairly high ceiling, but that floor is just so low, and he struggled a lot this spring. And outside of that, not really too much. I'm very pleased to see that Javier Sanella made the team. I want to see him start a couple times a week, just get him as many reps as he can. And outside of that, honestly, not too much. Again, I'm happy what Liam Hicks did this spring. He definitely earned a spot. But like we said, not a ton of surprises, so I don't really have any complaints.
Yeah. So there is that group of, as best as I can tell, maybe the Marlins will correct me, I think it's those 17 guys that have never been in this position before. And it just speaks to, if you like go through these names and you think about how the Marlins got them, almost a lot of them are waiver claims. Bacher and Henriquez and Gillespie, Otto, Derek Hill, Tyler Phillips, a glorified waiver claim. They sent cash considerations in that deal. Tinoco was a waiver claim. Veneziano was a waiver claim. Dane Myers was a minor league Rule 5 pick. All these guys that, and I mean, several of them have really earned this spot. Others are just here out of circumstance trying to find a diamond in the rough. But it's unusual to build most of your roster out of diamonds in the rough, because by that phrase's definition, it's supposed to be unusual that these guys actually pop and explode right here. For you, Sean, just anybody, I guess let's focus on guys that weren't here last season. Is any of these off-season acquisitions, whether it was a trade or a waiver claim, that you're especially interested in watching with this new team, whether or not you think they're going to be good or not, but just any new faces that you're a little bit more intrigued by?
Well, I mean, in terms of new faces, I mean, Gillespie's one where I like to really see what he does with his, had a strong spring. I like to see what he does with his, chance. That seemed to be another one of the promising stories. Meyer got a lot of the pitching headlines, certainly for pitchers doing, exciting things in camp, but, Gillespie was right there. So excited to see how that shakes out. And then, Hicks is not everything you've asked of him, to do, since he came in, earned the job, held off, some, competition, and, you're feel confident that he might be able to provide a little more, offensive spark on the days that he gets the chance, than Fortes, heading into the season. So I would like to see if they have we're on the path to having, answers at catcher. Certainly both of them are kind of bridging to Ramirez and Joe Mack, down the line. But, I'm really curious to see what Hicks does with his shot of seeing if, he's more than just a 1 year stopgap on that journey.
Yeah. We'll touch on it more later when Kevin comes on from the ballpark about the injury situation that has opened up some of the spots here for these guys to make the roster in the first place. From your perspective, Jeremiah, like which of these guys you think are under the most pressure to perform like right away over these next few weeks before Connor Norby and Jesus Sanchez and the pitchers come back? Because some of them are only there because of injuries. And I imagine there could be a lot of changes to this group pretty quickly if those guys don't get the job done early on.
I think right off the bat, you got to go with Matt Mervis as being one. Just never found it in Chicago, comes over, it's a change of scenery. And now he's one of the players that is expected to bring the power. But the thing is, he's just never proven himself consistently, struggled with the strikeouts. He's a monster in AAA, but if he doesn't get off to a hot start, I'm going to worry about him moving forward as just being kind of that quad A player. And then Kyle Stowers is the obvious one. I think you have a short leash on him, just given his age and given the opportunity he has in front of him. I mean, he's hitting second. He's starting on opening day. If the first month or two doesn't work out for him, I think you're going to have some tough conversations. And I wanted to touch on the bullpen really quick because I think it's interesting that they're only going to roll in with one lefty on the 26 man. I wanted to see Josh Simpson make the roster. They took it right up until the final cuts before they decided he wasn't going to be on the roster. So Anthony Veneziano, the pressure is on him. It's going to be interesting to see how Clayton McCullough operates the bullpen and plays matchups and whatnot.
Yeah, I got multiple messages, private messages from people that are very close with Josh Simpson that were very intrigued by his situation. For anyone that's not familiar, he got called up in 2023. He spent a bunch of days on the roster, but didn't pitch. So then he got sent down. Last year, he impressed during spring training, but got hurt and didn't fully get back to it. So this is a guy that thought that opportunity was coming like 2 years ago, and now he's still waiting despite having a pretty strong spring overall. And as Jeremiah touched on, they just don't have lefties. Veneziano is the one lefty in this bullpen. And to be honest, they acquired him more as a bulk guy off waivers, not even as someone that's especially good in those platoon matchups, but just somebody that was available at that time and could eat some innings. So that is, I agree with you that was a surprising choice that they are. If you remember last year, there was a time last year in spring training where it looked like they could go almost all lefties in their rotation, and they were half lefty in the bullpen. Remember last year, just 1 year ago, it was AJ Puck, it was Ryan Weathers, it was Jesus Luzardo, it was Braxton Garrett at a spring training, and then he got hurt. So it is just a big reversal when it comes to the handedness aspect of it. I mean, to me, I'm not too preoccupied with that because good pitchers get guys out kind of regardless of handedness if they're really well-rounded. So that'll be an interesting test for some of these guys because some of them just don't have very much big league experience yet, whether it's Bacher or Tyler Phillips or even George Soriano. Yeah, we don't know yet if they can neutralize both types of hitters, but we will see as that plays out a little bit more. Yeah, it is. I think people saw that stat on Sanoha. He's the guy I waffled back and forth on because he had such a productive year in the minors that it made me think maybe he's something more than a utility guy. Maybe play him every day until there's a more obvious opening, but there wasn't going to be a super obvious opening, especially in the middle infield moving forward. And so they end up putting him as a utility guy in a situation where he's the youngest player on a Marlins opening day roster since Jose Fernandez and Christian Yelich. That's the last time a 22-year-old was on the opening day roster for the Marlins, the way that Sanoha is in this situation. So he's just such a fascinating guy because he plays every position and he makes a ton of contact, but there's also serious limitations with him at his quality of contact. And honestly, I think there's even some questions about his overall instincts and how much value he really adds as a base runner. He to me is one of the more fascinating guys here, and I wonder exactly how he fits in when Norby and Sanchez both get healthy. Where else do we want to go before we bring in our Pittsburgh Pirates guy? But yeah, with this group, with Liam Hicks is another one. Just as a reminder, he has to stick on this active roster the whole year as a Rule 5 guy, or else be offered back to his original team. That's going to be an interesting dynamic because I still think Fortes is going to get the lion's share of the playing time at catcher, and it can be hard to settle into a rhythm when you're only playing part-time. When it comes to the bullpen construction, I think that's an interesting choice because Soriano had such a shaky year last season, but the year before was kind of interesting going on. Brandon mentions this. I'm sure you guys have seen it, that basically every time that Xavier Edwards has talked to anybody the last few weeks, he's been reminding them that he can steal 60 bases. I'll start with Nate on that because he is as much a ex-believer as any of us right there. That'd be about doubled what he did in the big leagues last year. But then again, he's expecting to get about double the playing time if he's healthy. What do you think, Nate, about his path and whether that's a realistic goal for him?
I think 60 is too low, to be honest. No, I'm kidding. I think that's probably pretty fair. I'm like you said, I'm as big of a fan of Ets as anyone else. So, like you said, smaller sample size last year, swiped a ton of bads, and even had a couple slumps last year, if you guys remember. So, if you can eliminate those little mini slumps, just keep drawing walks, keep getting on base. I can definitely see 60 in his future. I think it's been a goal of his, like you said, Eli. He's been mentioning it a lot. I remember on MLB Network like a month ago, he was talking to, I think, Harold Reynolds about it. So it's definitely in his sight. I think he can definitely get it done. Just as long as he stays healthy, knock on wood, I think he can do it. Mainly about Etzel. I'll talk about Etzel a little bit more. I'm really excited to see him play defense today. Kevin touched on it in his roundtable, just how he has improved it short. Like if we can see it throughout maybe the first week, if he really has made any marginal strides there at short with the arm and just his range. So I'm very excited to watch Etzel here. 162 games with Xavier Edwards, man. We are a lucky group.
Yeah. Well, let me now bring in our third guest of this one from Pirates perspective. He's completing our home and home series. It was on his show in Pittsburgh, and now he's for the second straight year joining us here as a live stream guest, Austin Bechtold, 937 The Fan in Pittsburgh. Happy opening day, Austin.
Happy opening day, Eli. Good to talk to you again for the second time in 3 days now. It is a wonderful 60 degrees here in Pittsburgh, and in March, that feels like Miami weather. So I will take it.
Yeah. Open roof down in Miami, just for anybody that's not up to speed yet. That is a blessing because they don't always do that on opening day. Sometimes it's too hot and too humid down there, even at this time of year, for them to open it up. But very grateful that they did. I wanted to start with rewinding a year ago because the Pirates swept the Marlins in the same matchup, in the same place, in a 4-game series. Got off to a good start even after that. Kind of a roller coaster season where they dipped in May and June, and then by July they caught fire again. They go into the deadline over 500. They were a buyer at the deadline. They aggressively got Brian De La Cruz from the Marlins. They made other upgrades right there. I'm wondering, as you were going through that last year, did you really feel that they were ready to be playoff contenders, or anything in the back of your mind that may have prepared you for the fact that late in the year they would dip out of the race and kind of finish exactly where they were the year before?
Well, I think aggressively would have been them actually going out and getting a different Marlin. Jazz Chisholm is the name that a lot of us talked about as the one that, I mean, we all wanted from a Pirates perspective, and think that would have, ultimately have been better for them just because of, positionally, depending on where he is in the outfield, you want to put him at third base. The Pirates have so many issues with keeping Brian Hayes healthy and stuff like that. So when De La Cruz was acquired, we kind of thought, okay, decent power bat, throw him in the outfield. The Pirates have had problems in the corners, and it would work out. And the pitchers that they acquired didn't work. They did sell off a couple of guys. De La Cruz did not work. And could we have envisioned the collapse that was? I'm going to say no. I don't think anybody could have saw 76 wins coming after Paul Skeens and the group took them to, I think there were 4 games over 500 at one point. But when the Arizona Diamondbacks came to town and Jock Peterson hit a home run that was about 20 feet to my right on a 3-run bomb, and they did not bring Aroldis Chapman in to face him. They kept the right-hander in there, Colin Holderman, who was absolutely blown up at times late in the year, and that's why part of the reason why they fell apart was their bullpen too. That was kind of the beginning of everything. O'Neal Cruz moving to the outfield. The problem for the Pirates has been once the spiral starts, they can't get it to stop. So ideally, this year is a little bit different, but the optimism, frankly, Eli, is just not really here in Pittsburgh this year.
All right. One guy that I wanted to get your I'm sure we're going to spend so much of the stream talking about Paul Skeens. Anyway, we're all on the same page about how brilliant he is. There's only so much to add on him. The one guy that I wanted to get your thoughts on was O'Neal Cruz, who began that transition to center field late last season. He was previously the tallest shortstop in baseball, and now he's going to be one of the tallest center fielders in baseball ever. But he had a good offensive year, and defensively, I think that's a fascinating question. Are you a believer that transition is going to work and solidify? You didn't get Jazz in that trade, and maybe that was part of the reason why they end up transitioning O'Neal Cruz to that new spot, right?
So there are some Pirate beat writers that are decently optimistic that O'Neal Cruz will be able to be a valuable center fielder. I think offensively, yes, he's going to be able to produce at the position. I'm concerned defensively, though, because he is a very fast, athletic, lengthy guy who moves very well, really good speed. I'm more concerned about him tracking the baseball and also being able to break the right way depending on what gaps he's going to. He definitely can cover ground in a short amount of time, but there were some spring training games, at least that I saw, where he either completely misread a ball, charged it when it ultimately ended up being a one hopper. And that's going to come with time. It's going to come with experience. Hopefully by June, July, he'll have it all figured out. There will be some growing pains. And when the Pirates ultimately opted with a month left last year to throw Cruz in the outfield, everybody was just kind of stunned. It was like, why now? Like, why is this transition not in spring training? And it ultimately ended up, I think, being the right thing for them just because the season was practically over once you got into September. So I'm not entirely optimistic his defense will be great, but it's got to be better than committing the most errors at shortstop of anyone.
The other guy on top of my mind is David Bednar, who for a stretch of several years was as consistently great a reliever as there was in baseball. Last year was a train wreck. And from what I saw, spring training this year didn't go especially smooth. What is your confidence level in him right now? And is he back to being the closer despite his struggles last year? Where are they at with him?
It's a great question, Eli. No one knows the answer. David Bednar has not been named the closer. No one has been named the closer. Derek Shelton has not named one. Bednar is a Pittsburgh guy, so sometimes it can be a little, touchy when you're describing. Us Yinzers love Yinzers here in Pittsburgh. We love talking about people that are like us in our own city. But at the same time, my confidence level for Bednar is very low. And the spring training numbers be what they were, an ERA right around 10, 8 earned runs, and right around that same amount of innings, 10 innings. It's probably going to be, if the Pirates have the lead today or all series long, you're likely going to see Bednar maybe one game try to close it out. I would not be surprised if they roll Bednar a game, Dennis Santana, who had a really good year last year, a game, and roll Colin Holderman for a game as well, and basically do a closer by committee role until they find out the guy that's just going to take it by the reins. I'm concerned about Bednar, very concerned. And one thing that we do at the station and the show that follows us, the 2 to 6 show I was listening to as I was driving home, they do like their own little auction house, like how many saves will David Bednar get? And they topped out at 10 as like their over-under. What do you think Bednar's going to get? 10. And that's kind of similar to how I feel. And it's disappointing. He's a 2-time All-Star, but he's fallen on some hard times.
Mm-hmm. So before things get too loud there at Lone Depot Park, we're going to bring in Kevin Barral, the first press box report of the season. Ethan Badowski in the background. Alex Krutchik by his side. Friends new and old. They're at the ballpark. Kevin, do we have you unmuted? Yeah, what is going on?
What's up, guys?
Happy opening day.
Look, we got the ice cream already out here. We have it out here, and it's filling up pretty quickly here at Lone Depot Park, I would say. Nice weather, not a cloud, well, a couple clouds in the sky. But vibes are good, man. Opening day, Sandy and Skeens. Want to see Skeens kind of take a lap around the stadium here, and he's massive. And it's opening day, best day of the year. So I'm looking forward to it.
As you know, this is a very important day for the Marlins ticket sales situation. Last year in this matchup, they drew like 32,500. That was probably as big as any crowd they did last year. They went all out this year. They had the dream pitching matchup, and they have Dan Marino throwing out the ceremonial first pitch, and they have Flo Rida doing the post-game concert. What is your early impression in terms of how it's filling out? Do you think they're going to beat last year's attendance for opening day?
I think so. Some Pirates fans here, a good amount actually. Every level is filling up pretty well. Upper deck looks good. Club level looks good. So I think obviously Miami traffic is a thing. We all know that for those that live down here. So we'll see how that affects the attendance. But I think they're expecting a sellout. So we'll see if that lives up to the hype. And obviously for those who care about a post-game concert on the field, that helps too.
You mentioned that Skeens is enormous. Any other observations from BP in terms of whether anybody did anything interesting during BP or anything that you noticed that you think is worth sharing from the Marlins or their opponent?
Well, Eric Wagaman was hitting some damn nukes out here in BP. So we'll see if he comes late into the game at some point. Graham Polly's here, wearing number 21. He'll be starting at third base, hitting eighth. And what else? O'Neal Cruz is a large human being. And yeah, man, I mean, it's a good time. The guys are looking forward to it. They feel like this is a team that's going to surprise a lot of people. We'll see if that's the case or not. And they know what people are saying. They're trying to, kind of not think about it. But yeah, we'll see how this goes. And it's going to be a tough first matchup for Miami against the Pittsburgh team that has good pitching for the most part.
Yeah, just get us up to speed on the injuries. We talked about this at the top of the show about how that is unfortunately a big storyline from the end of camp and how this roster came together. Just take us through the latest on how that's going and the updates the team gave out before the game.
Yeah, well, obviously, aside from the 8 guys who were placed on the IL, a couple already on here. Actually, three out of the 4 already mentioned in this one. You're through the bullpen. We'll see how that continues to progress. Sanchi spoke to him. He feels pretty good. Says that he should be back soon. And Norby, Isaac did an interview with him, so I don't know if he already released that yet or not. But once he does, then obviously that'll be the update there. He says he feels good. It really sucks. He told us, like, as he's walking off the field, like, it really sucks not being able to do that. So, being able to be out there with the guys hitting. So, yeah, he doesn't have a timeline yet either, but he says he's feeling good. And as a report says, he's doing baseball activities.
Anything else that you guys want from Kevin while he's out there that you guys up to speed on what's going on?
How's the home run harbor looking in left center, Kevin? No more AutoNation Alley.
Hey, according to Isaac, it goes off right after the national anthem, whenever the Marlins hit a home run, and after the Marlins win. According to our predictions, almost all of us, that thing's only going to go off once today. So, and it's after the national anthem. But I'm excited to see how it works. I'm excited to see what's up. So, yeah. The ballpark looks great. Everything looks great. Dan Marino's about to throw out the first pitch in 15 minutes. I think he's already down there, actually. So, oh, there he is. There's Dan Marino, the gift version. But, yeah, it's filling up nicely here, and it's opening day. Can't ask for a better time at the ballpark with the roof open. It looks awesome with the roof open.
Yeah. New addition to the gift database from a couple days ago. So fishonfirst.com/subscriptions. If you want to be a super sub, get all of our gifts, player highlights, stupid shit like this, everything in between. It's all available for you to use on your own to download right there. Yeah, just turn around that camera for us one more time. Let me blow that up so people can see how it's filling in right there. That is 40-something minutes before first pitch. That's not great, but it's something. It's better than the typical game for sure.
Or Miami.
Yeah, but no, that will get you out of there. Busy day, the park, busy day for me behind the scenes. Enjoy your business. Enjoy the ice cream machine over there and reuniting with all these long-lost friends.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. And we want to have Austin finish up here the one other thing I wanted you to extrapolate on. I saw your tweet about a couple breakout guys, potential breakout guys that the Pirates have in Endy Rodriguez and Nick Gonzalez. If you could give us the cliff notes on why you think both of those guys could have bigger career years than they've had before.
Sure, and I could tell my video is laggy, so I apologize for that. My internet must be absolutely horrible here. I feel like for Rodriguez, especially in particular, this is going to be a chance for him coming off of Tommy John surgery last year where he got hurt in winter ball. And a lot of people were frustrated that he was even playing winter ball to begin with, but that's neither here nor there. He is a switch hitter who was once the Pirates' hitter of the year, organizational player of the year. And, he's the real good speed, dynamic player that's a catcher that has bounced around a little bit. In the minors, he's played some first, which is where he's going to play today. He's played some second. He's played some outfield. They need some guys in this lineup. Like I know you guys talk about the Marlins lineup all the time as not having a lot of established hitters. Outside of like Brian Reynolds, O'Neill Cruz is right on that precipice. There are really no other established hitters. Like we know what Andrew McCutchen will do, but Andrew McCutchen is not carrying an offense anymore like he did in 13, 14, and 15. So Endy Rodriguez is kind of one of those guys that I'm looking at to step up and play first base with Spencer Horwitz out, another acquisition from the Pirates who there are conflicting ideas of how good that he can actually be. And Gonzalez at second base, former first-round pick, top 10 guy in 2020. The power potential is only like 12 to 15 home runs, but he had, I think it was like 5 or 6 game-winning clutch hits for the Pirates, which was one of the best that they had of anyone. And out of all rookies, it was one of the highest marks. So if he can build off of this previous season, because when he first came up, it was kind of a struggle. That's what the Pirates need to lengthen their lineup a little bit, because when you look at 7, 8, 9, it's not very good. It's not really consistent. So if they can get a guy like Gonzalez and Endy Rodriguez right in that 6, 7 spot, that'll be able to help them out so that the guys are not pitched around like Cruz and Reynolds all the time in key situations.
Right. And now let's get you out of here on this. I saw your season-long prediction, Pirates winning 78. But for this individual series, 4 games, we wanted to know how many games you think the Pirates are going to win and what a series MVP that could come from either team, any player on there. Let's hear it.
All right. I say that the Pirates are going to win 3 out of 4 in the series. They swept the series, if I got that correctly, last year against the Marlins and started off really hot. I think the MVP, and you guys are going to love seeing him, is going to be Paul Skeens. I think he will no-hit the Marlins through 6 innings, and then he'll ultimately be pulled, whether it's pitch count innings, pitch limits, whatever you want to call it. I think the Pirates win 3 out of 4, including today, and Paul Skeens one of the main reasons why.
All right, thanks a lot. Austin Bechtold coming at us from Pittsburgh for the 2nd straight year. Probably, I would have to imagine just by chance that's going to be a different opening day matchup next year. But I'm glad we have this tradition, this very brief tradition here. And yeah, I think for everybody's sake, let's hope each team wins at least once, because regardless of what side you're on, it is absolute torture if you get that deep into opening week and still searching for the first W. Thank you a lot, Austin. This is great.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the season and enjoy the games.
You too. All righty. So let us get to the rest of our show. We can just dive into these first lineups, I suppose. I should have mentioned that Kevin he had a one-on-one with Clayton McCullough, new manager, before the game. So we could give you a little clip of that because it relates to how he put together his first ever lineup as a major league manager.
Making this lineup, just what went into it, how many iterations of the lineup did you have prior to the one that you're putting out tonight?
Yeah, a few. I mean, and Skeens is fairly platoon neutral. We've got, some left-handed, a lot of our left-handed hitters in there today. X's ability to switch hit is a real bonus. So I think looking at Otto's every day in there versus everyone. So getting Griff, Kyle, and Paulie in there, Merv against Paul today felt like it made the most sense.
And here they are, first lineups of the year, courtesy of Baseball Savant, showing their StatCast numbers from last year. With this inexperienced Marlins group, you see a lot of green there because that means that they didn't even play enough to qualify across the board. Not a single one of these guys, a full-time big leaguer in in 2024 with the Marlins or any other team. I think we alluded to it before about the perhaps the most eyebrow-raising decision of this Marlins lineup, Kyle Stowers in the number 2 slot, coming off a spring where he drew a lot of walks, but didn't do a whole lot else. So just your first take on the whole lineup, Nate, but I imagine you want to weigh in on Stowers and how it is that he ended up quite so high coming off such a struggle in 2024 and his issues again in spring training.
Well, like I said, he still has that high ceiling, but against you guys have the meme with the hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby. That's what I'm expecting when Kyle Stowers faced Paul Scenes today. I'm not really expecting much there. He had a couple good at bats when I saw him in Fort Myers, but I think we talked about it last stream. His counts are his at bats are pretty quick, especially when he falls behind early. And with Scenes, you got to get ahead on a guy like him. So if he gets behind, maybe first pitch fastball, stares at it, then I think he's in big trouble. Outside of him, I think Matt Mervis had a pretty big series. He got a homer against the Yankees in the exhibition. So I'm looking for a big week out of him. The Pirates are throwing 2 lefties, I believe, but even then, I think he's going to do all right. Otto Lopez, I think, is like Isaac said, I think in his roundtable, he had a couple slumps last year, but he's only one of the only dozen here that has anything on his page. Actually, I think he is the only guy. That is ridiculous. But I think he's going to have a good series as well. And, of course, at the top is Xavier Edwards going to get it all started. And Grant Pauley, happy to see he made the team. Could see a good series out of him. And one guy that we didn't bring up earlier that I think also is on I'm not going to say super short leash, but Nick Forte has been here for, a couple of years, man. And he's really has not been able to hit. And it's only you got a guy like Odyssey Ramirez, breathing down his neck in AAA. So if he starts out hot and maybe one of hits or Fortes struggles behind the plate, or definitely, hitting wise, I think we can see a quick promotion there.
Yeah. As we see, Graham Pauley snuck in there relatively short notice because of the Norby injury. I'm fascinated to see how exactly the playing time breaks down at third base. He is the best defensive third baseman now on this roster, which isn't saying a whole lot. But the other options being Bride and Wagman, even Javier Sanoja could play some third. I'm curious to see how they handle Pauley, who was on the opening day roster for the Padres last year, for people that are not familiar, and it went really badly in a part-time role. He was sent down and never really got close to being recalled to either the Padres or the Marlins right there. Yeah, Otto right in the middle, that sticks out to me. That's a little different than last year where it felt like he was either much closer to the top or all the way at the bottom right there. I feel like that's an unusual spot. Anything from your perspective, Sean, that jumps out and makes you think about how this lineup is going to go together, at least with this current group until the other ones get healthy?
I think you just said it there at the end. If I had to guess who'd be batting second today, I probably would have said Lopez on there, sliding in there. But it's the crazy thing with spring results, in some ways they matter so much, in some ways they don't matter at all. Most ways they don't matter at all. If this was a veteran roster and we were talking about, a player with 3-4 years experience, with like one good campaign under their belt who had the Stowers season, who would care about, how horrible their spring was? But Stowers, with much less big league experience, seems offensive to all the other people who showed up to spring training that he did crack the 26-man, roster, and that he took one of those spots. So and Conine hit 280 this spring. That was one other thing that kind of pleasantly surprised me. That he did that well, 280, 350 on base. So I would have thought maybe both of them would be higher up than they are, in this order. But other than that, makes sense. Mervis hit 4 home runs this spring. Didn't do much else, but did hit those 4 home runs. So he is that big stick in the lineup, especially with Sanchez and Norby out. I actually think he's going to hang out all year hitting hitting home runs and just doing his poor man's Adam Dunn thing as the season goes on. And I like Derek Hill in center. The last time I was on here, I said that I thought he was a good glove out there, and that with a roster like this, just put the best fielder out there. It is because of the injury to Sanchez, but I'm curious to see what he does with this opportunity.
Yeah, Jeremiah, why don't you follow up more about Mervis and about, as mentioned here, Troy Johnson in that situation? Because I think you talked about Mervis just on the last Locked On episode. What is your confidence level in him moving forward? He did hit those home runs in spring training, but there were some underlying concerns that make you realize, hey, maybe this is why the Cubs gave up on him in the first place.
Right. I mean, the power has never been a issue of concern. The dude can hit the ball a mile. I mean, probably the best raw power right now on the 26-man roster, certainly up there with Jesus Sanchez. But my concern with him is the strikeouts. It comes with the profile, but he doesn't walk. And when you have a player who's going to hit for a low average, he'll run into an occasional fastball, hit it double deck, but he's not drawing the walks. And Kyle Stowers is going to have a higher OBP than you. That's an issue for concern over a full season. I think he drew 2 walks in all of Grapefruit League action, and that's cause for concern moving forward. I noticed they Clayton McCullough put Bride and Mervis back to back. The prototypical 3 and 4 hitters, the power hitters, if you will, in the traditional spots in the lineup. I would have put Conine at 5th. Lopez, obviously, would have put at second or 6th. And then the other concern I had was Derek Hill getting the start. He had a great spring, and I do expect him to get plenty of playing time. But the reverse splits for Hill in particular against right-handers are just awful. He's a left-handed hitting specialist. He hits left-handers, and Dane Myers is right there, who had a solid spring. I would have put Myers in to face Skeens in particular. Skeens throws so hard, and that's cause for concern for Stowers because Stowers can't hit velocity, and it's also concern just because he's a right-handed pitcher with Derek Hill. I think you're muted, Eli.
You're muted, sir.
I muted myself. Slide over to the Pirate side as we bring in our frequent host, Daniel Rodriguez, checking in time. We already had our Pirates expert hop on, but now that we actually see how this lineup comes together, what jumps out to you? Who are you most excited to see here these next few days among this Pirates group that struggles to score runs, at least last year, but probably has much more veteran presence than the Marlins lineup has?
Can we talk about the longevity of Andrew McCutchen? Just him continuing to just crush it. At his age, he's still hitting in the 5-hole. His ability to just continue to hit the ball and just be so consistent for the team and Pirates just getting off his contracts and just showing value. I want to say also for Brian Hayes, for me personally, I think if he can get the hitting right, if he could just be a consistent hitter and do a little more in terms of maybe the RBIs, the extra hits, show some more power, he can easily be, I believe, probably the best third baseman all around in baseball just because how great he is defensively. He already showed that he's one of the best defensively at that position. If he can put it in offensively, then he can easily be all-star type or maybe even perennial MVP candidate with Brian Hayes. But the main person I want to see, surprisingly enough, I want to see Joey Bart. This is a guy, one of the top prospects all of baseball, it seemed like, for years and years and years. Finally got his chance with the Giants. Did not go as well as most people would have thought to be the heir apparent to Buster Posey. It did not go well at all for Mr. Joey Bart. And all of a sudden, nobody knows he winds up with the Pirates. The Pirates who lost Rodriguez, Henry Davis, who is not a catcher at all, seemingly now in the big leagues. Joey Bart, the guy who I think he was DFA'd, if you correct me on that, Eli, but DFA'd by the Giants to now he's hitting 4th opening day starting catcher for the Pirates. If you look at last year, he was injured a little bit, played around 80 games, had a 2.2 B-WAR. And if you maybe want to prorate that to maybe 130, 135 games or whatnot, that's close to a 4 WAR. Yeah. If you want to, to do that, and Joey Bart, if he could do that this season, then the Pirates have something. I want to see Joey Bart. For him, it depends on staying healthy, and of course, O'Neal Cruz because he's an alien.
A little premature concern here, but if they get no hit today, start the season even worse than last year. What do the Marlins do? Well, we're doing shows before every series, so I guess this is something we'll revisit a week from now if they're still winless. If things really go quite that bad. It is, it is interesting, and that's going to be a big. No, but there's no doubt this is going to be a big storyline as soon as the team starts losing. If they start losing, the way that we all assume they would, we put out our roundtable today, and I think every single one of us that participated in that staff roundtable had them losing at least 94 games So if it does go that way, then no doubt that's going to overshadow things. That is why we take this one series at a time, give them a chance to defy expectations and get this stuff done. As you see here, Austin mentioned both Nick Gonzalez and Andy Rodriguez as guys that he's pretty high on, both of them in this Pirates lineup, and presumably will be in the lineup for 3, if not all 4 of these games during this opening series. I can pull up the probable starters here because there is quite a drop off from today to the rest of the series in here. Today, as has been mentioned again and again ad nauseum, this is about as sexy a pitching matchup as you can get between Sandy and Skeens. Then tomorrow, Connor Gillespie jumps in against Mitch Keller, who started opening day for the Pirates last year. Beozo versus Bailey Falter on Saturday. And then the rejuvenated Max Meyer versus old friend Andrew Heaney.
That's going to be good
on Sunday. Aside from today, Nate, which of these starting pitching matchups are you most interested in, even though understanding it kind of pales in comparison?
I'm terrified of Bailey Falter. If you guys remember last time the Marlins faced him in Pittsburgh, I think he had a no-hitter through like 5 or 6 innings, so he absolutely shoved. Hopefully they can change that. But I'm really excited to watch Max Meyer, man. First full start of this year. I think he's gonna. I was a little bit harder than last year. I didn't really have much of a pitch outside of his fastball and his slider, but he has looked a lot better this spring. So if he can really prove it, at least in his first start, and then continue it throughout the first couple of weeks, I'd be very impressed. And Connor Gillespie as well. I think Sean touched on him earlier. Had an amazing spring. It was really dominant. So he has some funky stuff. So him against Mitch Keller is not going to be as competitive as Sandy versus Skeens. But just seeing all these guys out there, of course, just watching the Beozo show. If he can keep the ball in the yard, that's always a fun experience.
Yeah, it does seem, for at least in the first few weeks, the rotation is going to be like this with Cal Quantrill in the number 5 spot. Still a couple weeks away for Edward Cabrera to come back, and it might be even longer than that before Ryan Weathers gets in the mix. So these guys will get their shot. Beozo, of course, had his shot last year, and he got the job done, but in a way that was a little shaky. It looks like he was playing with fire all the time because of his underwhelming pure stuff and all the long fly balls. And then with Gillespie, this is definitely a new opportunity for him. I think he only pitched 8 innings last year, and he's going to surpass. Well, you hope. I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself. He has to actually get some outs in order to get past that. Based on spring training, he looked like a really interesting guy, a deep pitch mix who, doesn't have a particularly good fastball either. He's pretty reliant on his slider and on getting ahead in counts. We will see if he does that. Yeah. And then Max Meyer is somebody that, me personally, I was hopeful about him even before last season ended. I was of the opinion that you got to take the post Tommy John results and performance somewhat with a grain of salt and give these guys a little bit more time to get back to what they used to be, or even to become the best version of themselves. And based on what he did over the offseason, what he looked like in spring training, he looks like a more complete pitcher. He looks healthier. He's physically stronger in a way that I think he knows it's not a make or break year for his career, but it is really crucial if he wants to be taken seriously as a starter moving forward versus being pigeonholed as this high leverage reliever type. So he took that seriously, and this is when he gets to start to prove it. Unlike last year, if he actually pitches well the first few times, there's no risk of him getting sent down. You would think that he is as secure in this rotation as anybody outside of Sandy and Quantrill. So he'll have a very long leash, and that starts today. That's the one game that, this is from Fangraphs. It's the one game where they're slightly favored according to Fangraphs. I could show you, if I showed you the more zoomed out version of this list, they are projected to be underdogs in like 13 of their first 14 games of the season, including more lopsided ones as they get deeper into this strength of schedule. Well, Jeremiah, I wanted to go to you, just understanding that after this series, the strength of schedule really intensifies with this team. The Pirates last year were mediocre. They were streaky. They looked decent at times, but they were well below 500 at the end. After that, it really ramps up. It's the Mets, it's the Braves, it's the Mets again, and it really doesn't lighten up much at all over the next month. So I guess that it has to put even extra pressure on the Marlins to get off to a decent start, like immediately, if they're to have any chance of, treading water, just because the talent that they're going to be facing throughout the first month of the season is pretty elite and pretty intimidating.
Absolutely. I mean, the first month of the year is just a gauntlet for this team. It's It's one of those, you go into opening day and you want to be optimistic, but you look down the road and I can't recall a schedule just this jam-packed of potential postseason teams. You have the only team that the Marlins will face in the month of April that is kind of a long shot to make the playoffs would be the Nationals, in my opinion. Other than that, you have the Reds, the Mariners, teams that might not have made it last year, but their fan base they're ready to go and they're ready to compete. So they have to start out hot. Otherwise, they're going to be behind the 8 ball right as the season gets going. And we saw that last year, how demoralizing it can be for the organization and the fan base. And you have the Pirates here who, on paper, they match up a little bit better than a team like the Dodgers does or the Braves. So you want to try to take advantage of this. And there's a couple pitching matchups. The Max Meyer one stands out to me. Obviously, Sandy and Skeens have been waiting all offseason for this. But you got to start out hot. Otherwise, it could be a long month. 10 wins is kind of where my over-under is for the month of April.
Sean already mentioned that he's I think you're going to that Dodgers series at the end of the month. So end of April.
Don't expect to see a win, but expect to enjoy the atmosphere and see many, many future Hall of Famers play in that game. Hopefully I'm including Sandy in the list, and I'll look into schedule luck that he'll be the one pitching. But yeah, it's a brutal slate for them to navigate. I'd go under on 9 wins, and
I would too.
Hopefully they pick up a couple of this series because they're going to need them.
I'm glad that Beef Cat here mentions the coaching staff. That is one of those interesting variables this year, where it's not only a first-time manager, but it is so many other guys that have never held their current position before. So many that got promotions from other teams to come to Miami to do these jobs. You have an assistant pitching coach that became their full pitching coach in Daniel Moscas. You have an assistant hitting coach that is now their full hitting coach in Pedro Guerrero. And on it goes throughout this entire staff of guys being put in different situations, many of them just relatively young and less life experience than the other coaches that we saw under Skip Schumacher, other staffs that you see across the league. That's going to be fascinating to see how that works. Guys that are, in some cases, don't even have direct connections to Clayton McCullough, but they're all kind of unified under this idea of leaning into data to make players better and to coming up with really personalized plans to make these guys better. Yeah, for this team to overachieve, a lot of it is going to come down to that, whether their bold ideas actually work and whether they can get players that you saw that opening day roster, guys that were acquired, so many of them on waiver claims, on really small deals. If those guys can somehow become like respectable big leaguers, then you got to give a lot of credit to the coaching and player development. But from afar, the reason why there's so much skepticism about this team is because if it was that easy to improve upon these players and to have them reach heights that their previous teams didn't think they were capable of, then other teams would do it. And for the Marlins this year, as the season starts, it seems that they're going to have the lowest payroll in all of baseball, a payroll that could get even lower if they end up trading Sandy in the middle of the season. But I guess we might as well spend the last few moments just talking about Sandy here. His 5th opening day start as a Marlin is in some ways it is different than previous years. In other ways, it just feels very familiar that he's done this gig way more than any other pitcher in Marlins history has. It's hard to predict one game, Daniel, but I mean, based on what we've seen and heard from Sandy during spring training, what are your expectations for him realistically? There's the Cy Young version 3 years ago at this point. There was 2 years ago where it was up and down, and he was solid overall, but it was a big drop off and then missing last year. Yeah, what's reasonable to expect from him here in 2025 after being gone all of 2024?
Yeah, I think the most reasonable assumption for this would just don't expect Sandy to go out there and have a complete game every single outing. Don't think every outing can come out and go 7, 8 innings. I don't think that's the way to do it now for Sandy. I think this front office, this coaching staff understands with Sandy that they're going to have to limit his innings, especially coming back from injury. Whatever you want to say about the trade, whatever might not happen. But again, coming off of Tommy John surgery, very serious, and him being the front, being the ace to facing the organization. You want him there. You want him to give you those healthy innings. You can give you maybe a couple, whatever. If you give him a couple shutouts, what is that going to do? A couple complete games. That's just going to limit more of his innings later on to the season. I think this staff really wants to give Sandy a solid 5 to 6 innings. And I think that might become the regular now for Sandy. Maybe 6, 7 innings, maybe every once in a while. But you're not going to see Sandy pitching into the 8th, pitching into the 9th inning. I don't think that's the way to do it now for Sandy, especially coming off that surgery that he had. He's not going to go ahead and lead the majors in innings pitched. But I think it's reasonable to see him going and pitching through maybe the 6th inning, maybe 7th on occasion. I don't think you're going to see it again. Maybe that one time in St. Louis where he wanted to keep pitching, going up to Skip. I don't think you're going to see a situation like that now. I think Clayton's more focused on winning those innings for Sandy, and when it's done for him, I believe it's going to be done. You're not going to see maybe any arguments that he wants to continue, and Sandy wants to continue pitching later into the game. But this front office, this coaching staff, they want to, maybe settle Sandy a little down in terms of him pitching more into the games. So I believe maybe 6 innings might be the new meta, Sandy.
All right, you know what time it is. There's a few minutes before first pitch. Got to get our predictions in. Cue the video, Eli. Yes, I'll do that.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
Prediction time is back yet again. This is a reminder of what happened last year, the top of the table from 2024. It went down the stretch. We had to, if I remember correctly, we had to do a postseason tiebreaker between you and one of our super subs. That is Nicholas Milton, who finished. Well, I think you guys did finish. This was the regular season point totals that were tied, and then we went into the postseason to decide that. And there's Sean 1 point behind them during the course of the regular season.
Oh wait, hold on.
I think Daniel's going to retrieve his grand prize that he won for being the prediction time champ. Yeah, I still have to decide exactly what the prize is going to be, but we're going to do it again. We involve everybody that participates on our streams. There's that jacket right there.
Mine's in my car.
and Sean has one as well. Yeah, from our partners at Homage. So I don't know. We might do that again, but so many people already have them. So I think we're going to go with something slightly different as the prize for the points leader this year. Get points based on predicting who wins the series, how many games the Marlins win, and then who the series MVP is going to be. We determine that with win probability added. So it could be a pitcher or a hitter. It tends to be hitters more often, especially in these longer series. But it's up to you to try to make that pick. It could be from either team. It doesn't have to match who you have winning the series overall. And so that was over the course of last season. But overall, the totals were really low because I think everybody overestimated how competitive the Marlins would be last year. So they continued to disappoint and make it really difficult to figure out early on. It's been, I think last year we had, over the course of the year, probably 80 different people make predictions at some point. And we're obviously looking to break that this time. And I'm just glad that it's something that keeps people engaged throughout the course of the whole season, because last year there's very little else to do so other than keeping track of what individual players are doing and how the team itself is doing overall. There's the glance at last year. We've already got submissions from our super subs. You could either send it on our site directly, fishandonfirst.com, by commenting on the series preview page or in our Discord channel. I think the link it's in the description of the YouTube channel and on our site. You can just join our Discord as well if you are a super sub and submit those predictions over there. And then I grade them after the fact. So with all that said and done, we got Austin's prediction. We have our guys at the ballpark. Let me play their prediction time video. I first have to upload that prediction time video. So silly me, just taking a few seconds. This is from Kevin Barral, Isaac Azut, and Alex Krutchik at Lone Depot Park. As soon as this loads, we'll hear what they expect from this 4-game set between the Marlins and the Pirates as it almost is done. Processing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come on. Finish loading so I can play the video there.
Alrighty, first series predictions of the season. I'm going to go with a series split, and Xavier Edwards will be your series MVP.
I'm going to go with the Pirates winning 3 out of the 4, and I'm going to go with Brian Reynolds as MVP.
Former future Marlin, huh? Let's go with a series split, and I think that O'Neal Cruz, who homered on opening day last year, he's going to have a good series as well. Series split, O'Neal Cruz.
For the first time this season, back to you, Eli.
All right, back to me. So we're going to go one at a time with these series predictions. The music is playing just like they showed us right there. Let me remove that. I'll start with our reigning champion, Daniel Rodriguez, for his series predictions. Go ahead.
Reigning, defending, back-to-back prediction time champion. I have my Williams Astudillo shirt. My jacket, I'm going for a three-peat. This is a dynasty, and we're starting off hot. Pirates win 3. MVP, Mr. Brian Reynolds.
Okay, so now going to our guest, Jeremiah Geiger. Your series predictions. Let's hear it.
I got the Pirates winning 3 out of 4. Brian Reynolds will be the MVP. He's a Marlin killer. Career batting average 315 in 22 games played, 17 RBIs, 17 runs scored, and 4 home runs. I think he has a monster series.
Okay. Sean Millerick.
You're probably hoping to hear something different, but I can't do it. Pirates are going to win 3 games out of 4, and the most consistent hitter on the field between either team will be the series MVP. That is Brian Reynolds.
Okay. Nate Karsmer, your prediction, sir.
You guys gotta have some optimism, man. I'm gonna take a series split, and for series MVP, you could have penciled this in game 162 a season ago. Xavier Edwards, easiest pick of my life.
Yeah, I had to waffle back and forth here. I need to stick with my original one. I went on Pittsburgh radio and I told them the Pirates are going to win 3 out of 4, and I had to stick with that. I remember getting burned so badly last year when all of us were overly optimistic. So I will say Pirates win 3 out of 4 here, but I am going to go unconventional and pick a Marlins player to win Series MVP. Otto Lopez. Last year, there was more good than bad. There was that inconsistency in the middle that kind of watered down his overall numbers. But he's a sleeper. He's a guy that if he is simply the one that we saw for most of 2024, he could be one of the most valuable players on this team. He could be somebody that sneaks his way into certain award consideration across the league. Otto Lopez gets off to a really good start offensively in this series. He's done damage against schemes before when they met last year. So I think from his very first game through the weekends, Otto Lopez does enough to keep these games interesting, even though the Pirates ultimately prevail. One stream in the books so far, and many more to go. So again, thank you to everybody that tunes in for these, and we'll continue to do so throughout the season right here. There's so much material to cover for better or for worse with this Marlins team. And yeah, I'm just glad to finally get started, man. This is one of my favorite days of the year across the whole league, but it starts right here in Miami in just a few minutes. So Eli Sussman, along with Nate Karsmer and Daniel Rodriguez, thank you to our special guests, Jeremiah Geiger, Sean Millerick, Austin Bechtold from the ballpark, Kevin checking in, and predictions from Alex Kruchik and Isaac Azut. Stay tuned to the rest of our coverage on opening day, reacting to every single game on the site. Fishonfirst.com is where you get our complete coverage, but we are available across all platforms breaking down this team. All right, so we're going to be here this entire year, and yeah, stay involved. Keep checking back in with the show, brought to you by About the Fans. Get yourself some FOF merch if you really enjoy what we do. And yeah, we're going to continue to build that out over the course of the year. So yeah, really excited to cover this team for all you guys, to answer your questions and engage with all of you. So thanks again for the support to getting us to this point. Enjoy the game. Enjoy this first series. We'll talk to you again next week. Go Fish.
Have a wonderful evening.